Tenants and property, and this is streams on from the Roscommon evictions. I took down the sign for Roscommon because once is enough to deal with it. I've dealt with that now. We'll see what happens after that. Now, the thing about it is about property. There's a rule called the adverse possession rule. I did a video on it years ago. Nobody was in the least bit interested. But anyone that's holding on to property against the will of their owner and wants to establish a title, it has to be for 12 years. It has to be for 12 years. Okay, so people need to move at 10 years, but there's always a few years there to get things sorted out, and there's always problems with getting estates sorted and all of that. So there's 12 years that's left. That's because the courts don't want to be dealing with something that's 100 years old and everyone dead. Okay, so it's not, that doesn't apply in this case. Now the other thing is about the law. The definition of burglary is to break or enter a building or part of a building. It's not a field, it's a building or part of a building with the intent to steal inside it or to do any malicious damage or to inflict injury on any person or property. So get that again. So there's the house is there. Someone jammies open the window. The minute he jams open the window with a bar, that's damage. He already has damage. He's committed burglary. If the window's open and he creeps in, he doesn't commit burglary. If he goes in then and he sees a nice television and he steals it and gets it out the window, he steals therein, he commits burglary. If there's somebody in the bed in the house and he has bad design, some lady or something like that, and he decides to try it on and he tries to inflict any sexual, and that's in it too, sexual offence, or we'd say he wants to attack somebody in the bed, he doesn't like them, and he starts hitting them with a stick, he's guilty of burglary. But essentially, the key to burglary is it has to be different from normal occupation. So if somebody breaks into your house and damages and all that, or steals or something, the guards can arrest them and all of that. And so it's burglary, and they can convict them and they can take them out. Now the question arises, what if a migrant or even an Irish family or some family arrives, a man with a wife and 6 kids, arrive and breaks into the house and he admits that he broke in and the guards arrest him? Can they get rid of the wife and the children? Well, certainly if you let a property to a family and they stop paying the rent and you go to the guards will tell you it's a civil matter. It's a civil matter. It's the civil law. It's only if you're there and they break in. Now, the next thing is, what happens if you go away on a week on a holiday abroad to Mayo? What happens if you go on your holiday, you come back and you find them in there? And they are frying the eggs on the pan. What do the guards do? They look to see is there any damage, is there anything stolen, and they tell you it's a matter for your solicitor. And I was at a funeral recently where I mentioned this before, where a son of the person that died had to be back for 8 o'clock because they had protection on their house, and he said if you leave it too long and they know you have a funeral, they'll go in and take possession of your house, and when you come back you have no house. When you go to your solicitor, the solicitor will arse around for a while and eventually he'll get a legal opinion of a barrister, all at your expense. He'll then institute proceedings in the court before the circuit court usually. If it's a very property over a certain value, it'll be the High Court, depends. He'll institute proceedings. It'll be adjourned and adjourned. And oh, Mr. Smith is not in today, Judge, he's in a court in Athlone. Oh, adjourn for a month. And then, Judge, Your Honour, it wasn't you who was on the bench the last day, it was Judge Riley. Oh, well, we'll adjourn for 2 months. And it's adjourned, and I appear for the defendants, and I don't appear. And usually there's no appearance for the people that are in occupation of the house. And it comes up then after maybe a year in the circuit court, which only sits a few times a year, and finally the judge will issue a committal order, and he issues the order, and that will go out to the register, and the register doesn't want to see these. It's a horrible job, and he will eventually put it through the system, and he'll write out to the person, and then he'll call to the house and he'll say, I'm the county sheriff, unfortunately I have to tell you this house is under court order. That'll take a while as well. And then he'll say, well, you need to think of something, do something soon, and he'll give them a month or 2 or maybe 3. When it becomes apparent they're not moving, he'll then tell the owner of the house, I'm moving on this house on the 15th of October. We'll give you the possession of the house. After that, it's up to you. If you fear that they're going to attack you, or if the sheriff fears he's going to be attacked, walloped and beaten, and half the country's going to come in to murder everybody that's taken the house, the guards will come in and assist at the civil power. They'll stand by and they'll not let anyone attack the people who, the register, or the people who are doing the helping. If the possession takes over, that security firm that you employ will have to stay in that house for a couple of days till the thing eases off. And the person that owns it will almost certainly drive up 5 or 6 times to the house and try and break in. And there'll be locks put on the gate. And when the security firm comes out, they'll tell him or her, you can't break in here, and they'll usually go away. If the person tries to break in again, they'll ring the guards, and the guards will come out. The guards will come out if there's a re-entry, because a re-entry is effectively a burglary if they break the locks on the door, not on the property. Now, there's a big difference. The Criminal Damage Act involves breaking any damage, but burglary is only for a dwelling, a house, or a building. Understand? There's a difference in the two. So in any event, if he breaks a lock, the guards may just take his name. So if the first night has got over, there may come a big crowd of them down and it may launch an attack, and for that reason, where there's controversy and high feelings, the Gardaí should protect the place for a couple of days, and then they should give it a bit of protection. How can what happened in Roscommon happen? This was one of the most controversial, highly charged situations. They were making allegations that it was political people from the Royal Irish Constabulary in the north and MI5, and all this thing was there. People were on a high. People didn't like to see these people being put out of their homes. So surely there should have been guard protection for a few days. There was nothing. There was nothing. Yet, for big English fancy people connected with the royal family, no expense was spared. For protecting politicians, no expense was spared. When the COVID came in, no expense was spared. When the do you remember the Creutzfeldt Jakob disease, BCG, or whatever it was, the cattle disease? They had the cattle in the pound, no expense was spared. 2 guards with submachine guns. When the foot and mouth disease came in, the guards was on the border with the Department of Health, no expense was spared. And I guarantee you, if the people who took back this property were connected with big ministers and all that, they'd be looked after too. So it's for the police to judge where there's a threat to life or property and to try and do something for a reasonable time to avert it. So now you have the situation where you get your property, you hold on to it for a few days, and eventually the people will have to realise they'll have to go elsewhere. You're talking about 2 to 4 years. 2 to 4 years, and you're talking about a lot of hassle, a dirty situation, and different people see it differently. Some people would be in a house and have no rent to pay and couldn't pay the rent and say, oh my God, we get on to the council and try and get a house. Would you leave us another week or 2? That's rare. What you get is, you hump off. We're not leaving here. Oh, look at that child there sick. I'm staying here. This is what you get. Now the problem is with people renting houses all over the country, and in particular Dublin. I hear now that unless you can find a house for them, you can't put them out. So who's going to rent a house to anybody, let them in and pay the rent and take a rent book, if they're going to stop paying the rent and you have to get them alternative accommodation in the current market? Is that the law? If anyone wants to comment on that, go ahead. We're filling the country with migrants. We're putting pressure on the housing market. Youngsters can't get to university. The whole thing is upside down because of our neighbours who voted. Some of them voted Fianna Fáil. Isn't that some vicious thing to do? Some of them vote Fine Gael. What a disgusting thing to do. And some of them votes for Labour and the democratic left and people before puberty. crowd of rascals our neighbours are. And now we have Sinn Féin. Are they going to do any better? I don't see them particularly protecting property owners. They're a highly socialist party. They believe in the state owning all the property. So I can only give you the facts. Meanwhile, lawyers and solicitors and all have to try and make a living in this environment. That's the situation. If you come back from your holidays and you find your house is occupied, I don't believe the Gardaí will have any role whatsoever. Now, I'll tell you this. If you're in your house or on your farm or something, and somebody comes in and occupies the land or the building, you can order them out and you can use reasonable force to put them out. You can horse them out and get friends and push them out. If they refuse to go, you can ask the Gardaí, the police in England, or the Gardaí here, it's the same law. And the police have to help you to eject that person from the property. They have to help you. When it's over and they're ejected, the police have to go as well. They have no right to be on your property either. The law of trespass is you tell a trespasser to go, they have to go. It's actionable per se. You tell anyone who's trespassing, you have to go. But where does that square with the person that's just come in, put on an old fry there on the pan, sitting on the sofa and looking at the soccer match on the telly? That's it. And they're already there when you come in. If you're there when they come in, then of course what I say applies. But if they get a grip on the place and have it as a home and get their kids in and all, that seems to be a different story, and I don't believe the Gardaí will give you any help. Folks, that's basically now all I was asked to do in relation to the Roscommon evictions. I'm doing a lot of videos. There's so much stuff to go through. But I mean, they're good videos and they are enlightening. I'm not particularly giving a view on anything, but I do know that if somebody left me a house somewhere, I'd like to get it. I might have done work for that person. They might have owed me something or something, and they say, well, we leave you the house in your will. I'd like to get it. Otherwise, a will is useless. So, for a house for sale, I can tell you where it is, going cheap, and it's occupied by people who stop paying the rent. And off you go with the county sheriff and your security firm and the whole lot. And no explanation in the media and the social media all saying, oh, you're back to the famine. It's back to the famine and vulture funds. You can't expect ordinary banks to have a wing of their banks to do these evictions. Their job is to look up shares, stocks, investments, where the best return is to be got on investments, make sure the bank accounts work, make sure people are notified, make sure the transactions work, make sure that the internet system works, and give people banking. So I can go in and sell my cattle in the mart and get a check and lodge it, and the mart can do the same. You can go into the hardware store and pay by check or pay by your credit card. This is necessary for banking. So the people that are saying the bank should also do the evictions don't take that into account. Why would it do that? The banks take a certain risk that some people won't be able to pay, and it's usually not many. But we're facing a situation now in America, and I don't know about Europe, we're facing a situation in America where it looks like people won't be able to pay their loans at all. So what's going to happen? Are they going to put them out? Who's going to buy the property? And in relation to the Roscommon eviction thing, I don't know what happened to that property. Was it sold? If anyone can contribute underneath that bit of information and say, this is what happened, it was sold or it wasn't sold or it was rough rotten, I haven't a clue, and I don't intend investigating it. But we need to get the record straight on the dire situation that is in the country with accommodation. We have a housing crisis, we have an environmental crisis, we have lots of crises, we have a migrant crisis. We're a crisis-ridden country, and there's a poll this morning that Sinn Féin is on 30%. They're on 30%, so that means they're way ahead of most. It's not that high a vote either. I mean, if there was a good party to be sensible, they'd probably get 10%, and that'd be 40. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll end up that we'll not be capable of being governed at all. So I'll let you go on that, folks. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I hope I've explained it to some degree. And also about letting someone in. Remember, For them to take possession, it takes 12 years. If they pay rent in any time, that kills the adverse possession. Somebody moves in on your property and they pay your rent, that kills it. So we'd say there are 9 years without paying rent, and then they pay you a bit of rent, that kills it. They have no adverse possession, the clock starts again. So people sometimes put people out, and it's not really justified. There might be some old person that's very old and like to stay on, and they put him out because they think he'll have adverse possession. Once they get a wee bit of a docket, a wee bit of rent of him, that's it. That kills it. So now I hope I've granted you that. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an advisor for you, and I definitely know what I'm said here will be taken wrong. So I have to put in the case of the Roscommon evictions and this video, the disclaimer that I'm not your financial advisor and can't be held liable for how what I say is used. I'm merely giving the overall background and the political situation that we're in relation to all of this stuff, and this going on every day. It just doesn't make the news. So we'll see you back for something soon. Bye. Good luck. I will see you. Right.